So for our first panel, Better Buses, Exploring BRT for Hudson County and Beyond, I want to bring to the stage Francesca Giarratana, Deputy Director, Department of Planning, Hudson County, Leah Katz, Acting Senior Director, Capital Planning, NJ Transit, Phil Bethel, Deputy Director of Bus Priority, NYC DOT, Renee Reynolds, Executive Director, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, Walter Hook, BRT Planning International, Clayton Lane and Jimmy Lee, trustees of the Hudson County Complete Streets, as our moderators. Thank you all.
Hello, welcome again. That was really inspiring. It was pretty amazing to hear our elected officials and leaders just speak so genuinely and positively about road safety and transit in our county. I'm Clayton Lane. I'm a trustee of Hudson County Complete Streets. I'm also a transit planner myself. I work for Nelson Nygaard. I live here in Hudson County, very passionate about the same issues you all are. And as Craig Guy just said, we have a rock star panel today focused on improving bus service and bus priority in Hudson County. I also want to just briefly allow Jimmy to introduce himself as our co-moderator.
Yeah, Jimmy Lee, also a trustee of Hudson County Complete Streets.
Yeah. As you heard already, and you may know through your life, we've got a lot of transit here, and Hudson County is a great transit market. Just to kind of paint the picture and remind you, statewide, New Jersey Transit carries almost 750,000 riders a day statewide. It's the largest statewide transit agency in the country, and a big part of that is right here in Hudson County. About 23% of all boardings and alightings on New Jersey Transit buses happen right here in this county. That's almost a quarter statewide. And we're surrounded by very urban counties as well, in Essex and Union and so on. And just to illustrate a little further, as you might have heard earlier, outside of New York City, Hudson County has the lowest car ownership rates in the country, the highest transit mode share to work in the country, some of the highest densities residentially. Also, you'll see anywhere in the country. So it's a very transit-friendly place. And when investments are made in transit, we see results. When New Jersey Transit increased investment and frequency on Route 119 on JFK, there was a huge increase in ridership. And yet, in our county, we don't see any bus priority or BRT infrastructure on the local streets here. Amazing market, and so much more opportunity to really speed up buses, improve reliability, get people to work, open up access to better affordable housing. So this panel is about how do we make that happen? And so in the next 45 minutes, we will create the vision for bus priority and BRT in Hudson County. More sincerely, we will talk about how we get there, right? We'll start talking about what that vision looks like. And just to begin, I want to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. We're going to do an icebreaker. I don't think anyone can compete with Craig Guy's New Jersey Transit socks. So I won't ask you to talk about your swag. But if you could just remind us who you are, what agency or organization you work for, and just briefly, what got you into transit planning as a professional? And I guess we can just let's go from right to left. We'll start with Leah.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Good morning, everyone. It's really exciting to see so many people here who are passionate about transit. So my name is Leah Katz. I'm the Acting Senior Director of Capital Planning at New Jersey Transit. I've been with the agency a little over 7 years at this point, but spent a lot of other time in my career in transit as well. And I would say, sort of echoing a lot of what we've heard this morning, I see transit as just so fundamental to the quality of life. For people, it's something I've personally experienced as well, and being able to impact that and really sort of move it forward is really satisfying professionally. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Francesca Giarratana. I work for Hudson County at the Department of Planning and Business Opportunity. I grew up in Jersey City. I lived very close to here in the Marion section. That's where I grew up. Definitely my upbringing here is what inspired me to be an urban planner, as well as be involved in transit planning. I now live in Bayonne, very close to JFK, and our office is over here in Jersey City, and my daughter's daycare is here right off of Kennedy. So the BRT study is very personal for me as well. I would love to be able to take a bus to work every day, drop my daughters off at daycare, and go to my place of work. So I'm super excited to be here today and to also work on that study. And shout out to my awesome boss, County Executive Craig Guy, for his support on everything.
Great. Good morning. My name is Philip Belp. I'm the Deputy Director for Bus Priority at New York City DOT. That's the 10-person team at DOT that plans, designs, and implements quick build bus priority projects across the city, about 160 miles or so far. Got into transit as a New Yorker, access to opportunity, that's how we get around. And I work in the bus sphere because I find it so incredibly empowering to actually be able to see the results of our work fairly quickly. On a bus project, 6 months after we start that project, we can actually be helping people get around, and that's just really wonderful. I had worked on the planning for Hudson Tunnel, and I'm still waiting for that to finish.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Reynolds. I'm the Executive Director of Tri-State Transportation Campaign, or TSTC for short. We are an advocacy organization working in multiple states on a variety of issues related to transportation. So everything from reducing our emissions to increasing dedicated funding for mass transit, making our streets safer. We touch pretty much everything, and really excited to hear some of the fights that we've been in, echoed in the room, and to have been a part of it. But I think, I'm a New Jersey transplant. I came here from New York City. I grew up in Queens, New York, where I like to say bus is king in Queens. And so my interest in transportation advocacy, I think, has its history in my history as a super commuter who had to take the bus everywhere, and who, like myself and my siblings, endured about a 2-hour ride to get to good schools and back home every day. And so I know intimately how much transit access means access to resources, access to schools, access to family, all of those things. And that's why it's really important to make sure that we invest in mass transit.
I'm Walter Hook. I run a small consulting company called BRT Plan International, but I also have a small nonprofit that does advocacy work around public transit. For 23 years, I was the executive director of the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, which was pretty instrumental in getting, I would say, 30 bus rapid transit systems implemented around the world, mostly in developing countries. And I know Clayton from that experience. Nice to see you, Clayton. I think I got interested in transit and bike advocacy because I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And as a teenager, to get around, I had to bike. And so I biked everywhere. And if you have ever biked anywhere in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., you know you are a second-class citizen, and people are hurling Slurpees at you, and dogs are chasing you, and it makes you kind of angry. And then you start to ask questions like, well, why is this so bad, And so, from there I evolved into a public transit advocate. Thanks.
Jimmy Lee, again, trustee of Hudson County Complete Streets, and also an advocate more locally in Jersey City on the board of Safe Streets Jersey City as well. I work on Vision Zero advocacy and advocacy for transportation alternatives. My journey into this world is just very simple. Me and my daughter almost got run over. I was thinking about why that happened, and I just kept thinking, and I asked a lot of people for help, and from there I just kept going. So, yeah, thank you.
It's really interesting how many of us have very personal stories of safety issues, right? And that's translating also into transit advocacy or professional work. Let's just start with setting a level understanding of what bus rapid transit is. When we say bus rapid transit, What does that mean? What's the minimum standard or threshold for calling something BRT? Anyone who'd like to answer that, go for it. Yeah.
When I was at the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, we pulled together some of the world's leading experts on bus priority and bus rapid transit design. And we created something called the BRT standard, which sort of tries to give a score to a plan or an implemented bus rapid transit project, because we were noticing around the world that sometimes, for Boston, for instance, labeled their Silver Line BRT, but it didn't even have a dedicated bus lane. It just was a new silver bus. So we tried to say, okay, well, what is it? What are we really talking about here? And that BRT standard tried to set a kind of minimum, and then it ranked, all the way up to gold. And the critical elements really are that it does have to have a dedicated lane, with some kind of indication that you're not supposed to be driving there. Usually, the major causes of delay are also from the boarding and alighting. So when passengers are getting on and off the bus, particularly at a big station, if you have to pay the driver, there's a huge delay. So a proper BRT has prepaid boarding. You pay before you get on the bus. And you enter a station, and usually, in best practice, the station is level with the bus floor. So you have this feeling like you're getting on a metro or a subway. It feels like something other than getting on a bus. It should sort of look like something on a map. Like it should have enough speed and dedication that it should be on your rapid transit map. It shouldn't be just like another line that you don't recognize on your bus map. It turns out that transit signal priority isn't usually implemented in a way that it brings much benefit, but you usually have to get rid of left turns, because the left turns, if you're running a bus like you would run a streetcar or a light rail down the central median, you got to get rid of the left turns or they face a delay. The busway should be in the central median of the road. Why? Because on the right lane, you're dealing with right turns, you're dealing with deliveries, you're dealing with construction. So there's a huge speed improvement just by putting the dedicated bus lane in the central median. So those are the sort of really key things. Then there's all kinds of details. But when you design your own system, you should really go and look at your bus routes that you're trying to speed up and figure out precisely what's actually causing the delay. And then when you design the system, you should make sure that whatever you've designed is actually addressing the specific problem that you have. Now, the BRT standard is a kind of toolkit, but there's no shortcut to going and looking and seeing what is actually causing the delay. Thanks.
Walter just said, really that it's very context specific, and we do have a toolkit of things that we can implement, but you need to make sure that it's working for that specific community, that specific corridor, to really be effective, because you're trying to achieve that goal, right, of having a premium service that ultimately you're looking to move more people more quickly. So you need a combination of elements that's going to allow you to do that.
Level boarding, defined stations, and physical protection.
Yeah, I think the key, wait, is this on? I think the key is the R in BRT, right, is rapid, and everything that you can do to increase speeds and connectivity, and also looking at the relationship between the bus commute in comparison to the alternative that you don't want folks to take, which is driving. So if your BRT system isn't competing with that commute that seems to be much more convenient, then are you truly BRT?
All right, awesome. There's so much exciting talk about BRT these days. In years past, New Jersey Transit has actually studied BRT around the state, from South Jersey to North Jersey. There was a Go Bus initiative in Newark in 2008 that's met mixed progress. There were new routes for New Jersey Transit's newer bus network redesign in 2021 that still remain under evaluation. This question is mostly for Leah, but others feel free to chime in. But what challenges does New Jersey Transit run into in making BRT a reality for New Jerseyans, and what opportunities do you see today?
Sure. So I think, just kind of to set the stage fundamentally, right, as we're discussing the elements of BRT, fundamentally, really, you have a combination of operational elements and infrastructure elements, and we only control half of that equation, right? So inherently, there's a challenge there because you're looking at advancing something where you only have control over 50% of the solution at best, really. So we, as the agency, can't advance BRT without local partnerships with municipalities, with the counties, the people who actually own the street infrastructure where these improvements would be happening. And when you think about BRT as well, it's very likely that it's crossing municipal boundaries, so you are going to have a lot of local partnerships and a lot of people at the table. And in the challenge sort of like in that, right, is that BRT often has this reallocation of physical space in the roadway, and there's a lot of differing opinions on how the right-of-way really should be split up and allocated. So I would say, a fundamental challenge there is just finding consensus on how are we going to use the right-of-way, in different areas to the best use possible. And kind of like flipping that then where the opportunities really lie, I would say locations in areas where traffic congestion is just becoming untenable and the frustration is growing, and more we're seeing people in those areas are willing to have conversations around how are we allocating space, and really, is the priority going to remain moving vehicles or is it going to be moving people?
Amazing. And so let's talk about that other half for Francesca. Hudson County is now officially funding a $150,000 BRT study for JFK Boulevard. Huge congratulations. What will yes, let's give it in. What will the study cover, and what are its ambitions? After the study, what would be the ideal timeline for implementation? And what's different about this time for progress to be actually made? There was a study back in 2013 as well.
Right, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Well, first I'll go with the differences from the study in 2013. And that really looked at different corridors. And this one, we're really just focused on Kennedy. We're looking at strictly this main thoroughfare that is a county road that we have full jurisdiction over. And for this study, we really are focused on the design options for the corridor. That is our main goal there, to be able to look at all the design options on the table and get creative with different sections that we have along the whole stretch of the boulevard, from the tip of Bayonne to the Jersey City, Union City border. And so when I say all options, I mean, looking at dedicated bus lanes, whether that's removing a parking lane or a travel lane, whether that's a combination, whether that's at peak times. Also, looking at other creative solutions, and that would be a combination. I would also say we want to look at bus stop consolidation as well. That's, what Leah mentioned of, that's something that, we have the control over, and working with our cities and putting that into their mindset of how bus stop consolidation can be something that could have immediate results. And so, we'd like to look at that as well. So in terms of the ideal timeline for implementation, again, with the focus being on the road and corridor design, I feel like we have an opportunity to start making these changes right away. We have federal funding for local safety projects all along Kennedy. So there'd be ways to build these recommendations right into the design. The bus stop consolidation, you would feel that immediately. So I think we have a unique opportunity to, bring some changes, as soon as possible. And on the longer term, the study will also cover looking at funding opportunities for the system, and so that we can have these larger conversations with NJ Transit to implement the full system.
Super exciting to hear that there's both long-term and short-term improvements that are on the table. We've talked a lot about like the different uses of that road space, from dedicated bus lanes to potentially restricting left turns. What is the honest conversation we need to have with residents and businesses, as well as the diversity of riders' voices? Who is responsible for holding these conversations?
Well, definitely part of it's on us right now. I think we took it out of our scope for our consultants and took it on, so to make sure that we had no budgetary limits on the public engagement, and that was done very intentionally. The county exec wants to make sure that we speak to all the stakeholders that are involved, and I really hope to engage the local electeds on every level to help us do that. Also, something that I learned during my census outreach in 2020, having a messenger, a community trusted messenger, speaking to houses of worship and individuals that are along the corridor and that could really benefit from this. And then making sure we speak to the people, that are the bus riders at the bus stops. And I think, if I was brutally honest with all of the individuals in the area, I would say, listen, it's already difficult, unpleasant to get around Jersey City and Hudson County in a car, right? We're not going back. Traffic's not going to get easier. And so it's time to adapt. And this is our true one opportunity to make a transit system on the, along the spine of Hudson County. So take that into consideration.
I think with that, I just want to turn to the room for a second. If you're an elected official, would you be willing to do a ride-along to see firsthand some of the opportunities and challenges with bus riders? I see a lot of hands up.
On that theme of really connecting with bus riders, I wanted to ask Renee, you work across the tri-state area. You work with the Tri-State Transportation Campaign's Bus Riders Council. And I think we're all curious to hear, what are you hearing in terms of the needs of bus riders, and what could advocates in the room, whether they're elected officials or community members, what could advocates do to help address those needs?
Sure. So Tri-State has been working for years to build a bus rider council. Right now we have a membership of about 500 bus riders across the state. They're representative of South Jersey, North Jersey, all over the place. And then we have a really strong core of about 20, I guess you would call them steering committee folks that come back every time for every meeting and are deeply engaged. They go to public hearings, they give testimony, they engage in digital campaigns to talk about how they're impacted by transportation. And so what we hear from our riders oftentimes are that, bus service is not frequent, and particularly in the night and weekends, off-peak, when folks like them might still be, trying to get to work or wherever it is that they need to be. And so having frequency of service is really important, off-peak or on-peak. Delays and cancellations that occur in a lack of communication and clarity on what the alternatives should be and where they should be going. So riders give feedback in the forums that we support, but then we also try our best to equip them with the information they need to be able to be vocal in public forums that agencies are hosting or elected officials are hosting as well.
I think that issue of reliability is often like invisible from the outside, but it affects people's daily lives so much, as you're saying, and like the communication around what is happening with the system. Phil, I wanted to ask you, New York City DOT has been working on elements of bus priority for quite some time and has gained some experience. And I think it's an exciting time now with Mayor Mamdani coming in. In his first 100 days, he's reinvigorated, or I guess restarted, 2 major bus priority projects in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. Actually, now it's more than 2. I just heard about Linden Boulevard. Curious to hear from you, just if you could tell us a bit more, what are the plans ahead for bus priority and BRT, and what lessons from these past decades are you trying to pull forward that might be useful to learn here as well?
Yeah, thank you. So the New York City DOT has been building bus lanes since 1967. We're at 160 plus miles, but really has done most of those in the last 15 years or so, many of them with MTA through the SBS program. And since 2019, DOT has been really focusing on bus corridors as opposed to bus routes, a place where we have multiple bus routes, multiple bus riders. And so we actually do most of our work in-house, quick build. They're not capital projects. They don't take decades. And so we are able to actually have a 6 to 18 month timeline from starting a project to getting that in the ground. We do find that's really effective in being able to roll out these bus lanes, busways very quickly. To the future, as mentioned in Mayor Mamdani's first 100 days, most recent speech, we've been recently recommitted to do 45 priority routes, looking to get speed gains up to 20%, which we're very excited for. We're going to be breaking ground on Tuesday on Flatbush Avenue. We are building in-house, not capitally. We're building center-running bus lanes with physical protection and with concrete bus board and islands. And so we're very excited for that. That's a type of construction that previously our in-house crews could not do, but over the last 15 years of flexing these muscles, our designers, our crews are getting better and better. We can do bigger and more exciting things. And so we're very excited about that. To Walter's point on left turns on Flatbush Avenue were banned about a decade or so ago for safety reasons that actually really set this up very easily for a center running bus corridor. We did not have to ban those turns. We do work very, very closely with the MTA. We run the streets, they run the service. And some of our best projects have come about through that partnership, being able to really use their data to understand, is the bus slow due to congestion? Is it due to double parking? Is it due to delays boarding and alighting? We can really sort of tailor those, which is useful. And often we've found that we do need to work very close with the MTA once we put our projects in. Sometimes the bus is too fast and the schedule actually says you've got to stop here until 10 a.m. and the bus got there at 9:55. So we actually have to update those schedules to see those full benefits. And a great example of that was our working with them on Queens Bus Network redesign on Hillside Avenue with MTA and Nice Bus, where they were able to do stop consolidation, schedule changes, and then offset bus lanes. In terms of lessons, I think we found generally the further the bus gets from the curb, the better. Curbside lane, you see lots of parking, loading. Offset lane, a little bit faster, but you still see double parking. And the gold standard generally for BRT is those center running facilities with physical protection to make sure that it's just your buses that are in those lanes. And it's a sort of, I think, last sort of lesson, if you will, sort of try to think creatively, especially about connections and the larger street network. We've found in many cases where a bus is doing a long one-way loop, maybe you reverse the street direction of a street. Maybe you build a contraflow bus lane. You're not speeding the bus up by 10%, you're just cutting 3 minutes off the run time. And that's time that riders really enjoy saving.
On that point, I thought that was fascinating. You said left turns had been banned for a while on Flatbush Avenue, right? For safety reasons. I'm curious, what about the other direction? I think you were talking to me earlier about how the bus priority program has contributed to New York City DOT's Vision Zero initiative, which is, bus priority is just one part of what you do. Can you tell us more about how there's that link?
Yeah, definitely. So, once you start working on a street, you can't be just looking at the bus. So all of our projects are complete streets projects. We found, especially our offset bus lane projects and our busway projects, which restrict private vehicle through traffic, have been incredibly successful at bringing down crashes for cyclists and pedestrians. The bus priority team itself, we've built protected bike lanes, we've built pedestrian plazas. While we may come to a street, having identified an issue with bus service, we want to try to bring that whole toolkit. And I think it's really exciting as New Jersey embarks on these new BRT visions that this is an opportunity, I think, to really be able to bake in those sorts of safety improvements, pedestrian improvements, livability improvements.
Walter, you've studied recently. You've done a lot of things all around the world, but recently you studied in your own city where you live the effectiveness of different bus priority design and technology treatments and evaluated through a report called How Much Faster Are We Moving? Evaluated these different interventions for their impact. Can you tell us what you found? What really has made the difference? Was it transit signal priority or the dedicated lanes or off-board fare collection? What has made the difference that we can learn from?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, thanks to New York City's, about 15 years of hard work now, New York City's bus priority measures are a laboratory of experimentation with bus priority measures. And thanks to the MTA's database, which is publicly available, you can look at the speeds on the affected bus routes before and after these measures were taken. And so we were able to do a very comprehensive study of what different types of interventions did and how much they improved the speeds. And what we found was that simple curbside bus lanes don't do much because of all the obstructions that are constantly being blocked. The offset bus lanes worked better. They were getting us like 5 or 6% improvements. The best project in New York City was the dedicated full busway on 14th Street because it was combined with the old select bus approach, which has the all-door boarding, prepaid boarding, and it did eliminate some of the stops. So what worked the best in New York was when you had dedicated bus lanes with prepaid boarding, with some stop elimination, and if you can eliminate the left-hand turns. Those were clearly the most important things. New York City has to still get just a couple more steps before we can say that they've got their first BRT, but I'm very optimistic about the Mamdani administration. To get the platform level with the bus floor has been a challenge because of issues with the bus configuration, but we hope that's a solvable problem. And they are moving to central median bus lanes, but there's too short and too few to notice any effects yet, but they're moving very aggressively, so we're quite optimistic.
I'm going to try to, in the interest of time, I'm going to try to do a combined question here. But going back to Leah here, so as we know, Northern New Jersey is one of the strongest transit markets in the country. But we don't yet have BRT or bus priority or transit signal priority in New Jersey. What is New Jersey Transit's vision for any of those? What plans are underway? And what are hotspots that you mentioned earlier? Like where are the hotspots where we could make the most progress, where riders are getting stuck the most? And then part two for both Francesca and Leah. Hudson County Complete Streets has a vision for BRT and bus priority in Hudson County. BRT, the full length of JFK, bus priority improvements countywide on high ridership routes. And then also BRT from Secaucus to downtown Jersey City, not through the Bergen Arches, but sort of on top on that infamous kind of highway on top of a highway, 139 upper. To the both of you, would the county be open to this full vision of BRT, the full length of JFK, and Leah, would New Jersey Transit be open to this alternative vision for the Bergen Arches of sort of reusing highway infrastructure that's actually, it's a highway, but it's actually a city street with like apartment buildings on both sides, kids crossing every day, et cetera?
Okay, so there's a lot there. I'm going to see what I can remember and get through here. So in terms of, a vision of BRT, I would, just kind of go back to what I was saying before, is that, it depends on partnership. We don't have final say on the infrastructure side of things. We, yes, control the service, but, all of those improvements have to be made through local partnerships. So I'd say that vision needs to be developed, with our local partners like Hudson County, because it cannot advance with just one of us, right? It has to be both of us. That said, we are always looking to make sure, that our service is meeting demand as best it can, and putting out more service where we see that demand, responding to the conditions on the ground, like I said, within the resources that we have available to us, moving towards those really high frequency corridors where, it makes the most sense. Hotspots, Hudson County, I mean, there are so many across the region where there's just a lot of demand, there's a lot of congestion, so there's a lot of opportunity, I guess, is the flip side of that, around the state and specifically in Hudson County as well. In terms of any priority connection, I would say, between Jersey City and Secaucus, that's something that we're certainly open to a discussion on. We're very supportive of any sort of investment that's going to help move transit more efficiently, more effectively, and ultimately create a better experience for our customers. So yes, absolutely, we're supportive of being in that partnership and advancing those kinds of investments.
Thanks, Leah. I think if we weren't open to the vision of a BRT along, all of Kennedy, we wouldn't have, initiated the study. So we are, we are interested in exploring it. Obviously, we're starting with Bayonne and Jersey City, but there's still a large portion that's within, that's still within the county. It's a lot more municipalities, a lot more opinions to contend with. So we're hoping to, have this part be the pilot and see what comes from it, and to see, hoping, to open others, eyes, other stakeholders to what is possible along the full corridor.
That's amazing to hear that. Thank you both. As we close, I'll ask one final question to you all and give you some time to think about it. And that question will be, when you look out in the room here, you've got elected officials and advocates and NGOs and transit planners themselves, what is the one thing that you would ask the folks in this room, what's the one thing that they could do to advance better transit in Hudson County and beyond? And while you think about that, I'll just try to summarize a few themes that we heard today that I thought were really helpful. First, about the needs. We heard about the needs for better frequency, better speed, better reliability to help in people's day-to-day lives get to where they need to go, whether that's school or jobs and so on. We heard about what it means to have bus rapid transit. I love that statement that Renee said, where she summed it up, well, it's about the R. It's about the rapid part. And we heard about what makes it rapid, right? We heard about dedicated bus lanes and off-board fare collection and transit signal priority, and limiting left turns is a big deal, really contributes to better speeds. But also that we don't have to wait forever, right? We heard about how New York City DOT, one of the big lessons is doing as much as possible in-house, getting things done on the ground, incrementally wherever you can, which eventually can also lead to the full BRT as well. But I thought that was fascinating, as well as the link between safety and bus priority. That I thought was so powerful to hear those examples of pedestrian plazas and protected bike lanes and just other safety improvements. Francesca also mentioned how there's a desire to integrate road safety improvements with bus priority improvements as the county moves on the JFK BRT to get some more immediate results. And we also heard about how this is personal. And a lot of that, I was really moved to hear how it's personal also in terms of safety, right? A lot of you were moved to work in transit because you've had some personal experience. With a couple of you mentioned taking your daughters to school in the morning or having a personal safety incident that said, hey, I have got to get more involved in this. And that also led you into advocacy advocating or working on better transit. And finally, we heard about the JFK BRT study that's coming up, about an interest to really look at all different design options, the full range of possibilities, how to fund this, and also how to make a difference as soon as possible, because this is the one true opportunity to make a big difference for transit speed and reliability in Hudson County. And with that, I will move it back to our panelists and let you close with your message. Just briefly, what is the one thing that we can do in this room, folks in this room, one thing that we can do to advance better bus service for Hudson County and northern New Jersey? Let's start with Leah.
Sure, so I'm going to say two things because it really is two, and that is resources and partnerships. We cannot make progress without both of those things in place.
I would say encourage your neighbors and your community to ride the bus and understand the possibilities that are there, and also how frustrating it is of the length of time a short trip ends up taking. I really don't think you can understand unless you personally experience it, and I would really just wish that more Hudson County residents would get on the bus.
Yeah, I would say look for the quick wins. There may be some real things you can do today, not in the future. And you can look to your bus riders and your bus drivers. They may know those quick wins.
I would say support advocacy. Support advocacy organizations. Like sometimes we are the sort of intermediaries between these conversations, and we're oftentimes small but mighty organizations. So anything that you can do to support us as we attempt to build local power would be helpful in advancing and combating our vast, car-centric culture.
I would just remind everybody of the famous Daniel Burnham quote that says, "Make no little plans, they have no magic to stir people's souls." So it's incumbent on the leadership to come up with a vision for Kennedy that actually is exciting to people. Maybe you won't get there, but create a vision that people want to fight for. And then it's really incumbent on you all to go to your community meetings and participate, because if they come with more aggressive plans, they're going to face hard choices, removal of left-hand turns, etc. But if the public sees a vision that they're excited about and compelling about, and they say, that's a thing I would ride, they're going to be more willing to overlook the fact that they're going to lose a left-hand turn, they're going to lose 5 parking spaces, and people that are coming with those arguments are going to seem petty and trivial. Whereas if they're skeptical of what you're presenting, well, it's a dedicated bus lane, but is it really going to matter? You're always on the back foot. So I think we've got a lot of work to do. You've got a big opportunity here with a great consulting team that's going to help you create a vision, will hopefully compel the public, and then you all are going to have to really fight it out street by street, because it's a lot of work. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Let's thank our panel. Amazing. Excellent.